throughout the North America. He owned and operated a chain of retail birding stores for 17 years after studying biology and animal nutrition at the University of Illinois and Michigan State University. Larry's extensive knowledge and experience within the industry has led to many innovative and award-winning product designs throughout the years. In his free time, Larry is an avid waterfowler and enjoys hiking, birding, biking, lacrosse, and fishing. Here's Larry.
Good morning, everybody. As she said, my name is Larry Keller. I own the company Nature Products USA. We manufacture birding products that we sell to retail stores all throughout North America. So one of the things I wanted to talk about this morning was what type of trends do we see going into the spring season for the birding industry? And we'll also discuss some of the more recent trends that have been going on within the industry. So one of the things I'll do here is I'm going to share my screen with you. So the backyard birding industry, very interesting industry. As you see here is the #2 most popular hobby in the United States. That is only second to gardening, which kind of goes hand in hand.
Larry, your screen is not saved or shared at this point.
Sorry.
No worries.
Let's try that again.
Sure. Perfect.
Okay. So with the #2 popular, most popular hobby in the United States after gardening, recently in 2022, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did a survey, and we see that 100 million plus people in the United States do bird watching or bird feeding. So if you go back to 2016, when the last survey was done, that's a 50% increase over what it was then. So what we see in that industry is with the bird watching and the travel, everything that's involved with the bird feeding industry, it's a $250 billion industry overall, with $24+ billion just in bird feeding alone. And the bird feeding part of that, it covers the bird seed, the bird feeders, the bird houses, everything that you would do in your backyard. So right now within the upper Midwest that we see nearly 50% of the households in Minnesota and Wisconsin feed birds at some point in time during the year. Of course, when we talk about spring, our #1 bird that we talk about are hummingbirds. They'll be coming back here in about 4 weeks. So hummingbirds are a very unique bird because within the world, they only exist in the Western Hemisphere. You will not find them anywhere else except for in North and Central and South America. Populations travel anywhere from Australia all the way down to the end of Chile in South America. In the United States and in North America, we have pretty much about 12 different species. We'll get a few variants that show up in the southern parts of the United States out of Mexico, but within the US and Canada, we have 12 different species of hummingbirds. And of course, we have the nice little guy here, the ruby-throated hummingbird that's in the Midwest, with occasionally some other ones showing up from time to time, depending on weather patterns and some accidental relocations. So when we talk about hummingbirds, we talk about hummingbird feeders. Big part of that industry, large number of different types of feeders out there. So you see feeders that are all different shapes, colors, sizes. So there's a lot of different bad feeders out there, and it's very few good feeders out there. So this particular feeder that you see in this picture here is what we call a platform feeder. This particular feeder is a very easy, simple feeder to open, fill, and clean. Cleanliness is the biggest thing with hummingbird feeders. We want to make sure the hummingbird feeders are cleaned every 3 to 4 days. That also includes replenishing the nectar with fresh nectar. If you've got a feeder that has a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of different tubes, you have a major problem trying to keep something like that very clean. Cleanliness is a huge thing with the hummingbird feeders because the sugar water will start to grow bacteria, mold, and fungus. All of those things are very harmful to hummingbirds when they're feeding. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of what type of a feeder we're using and be very careful on choosing those feeders. Of course, red is the predominant color, but they will also attract to other colors of feeders. But the red does seem to grab their attention the most. So hummingbirds is the #1 bird that we try to attract during the springtime. Something that has become very popular over the last couple of decades, of course, is the orioles. They'll be showing back up here in the upper Midwest about the first or second week of May, depending on how the weather's going. One of the interesting things about Oriole feeding and attracting them to your yard is that you'll see people will contact their local store, or they'll say, hey, I've got an Oriole out here this morning. I need to get a feeder. By the time they run to the store, grab a feeder, come back home, that Oriole is gone. So one of the things that we like to tell people is that Orioles like to travel at night. That's when their migration patterns go. They pop in the morning. If you've got the feeder out and ready to go, you're going to keep the Orioles around for some time. Fortunately, up here in the upper Midwest in Minnesota and Wisconsin, we have a very high area of nesting that goes on. So not only will you see them in the month of March, but you'll keep them through June, July also. And typically Orioles are one of our first neotropicals that migrate out of here. So they will typically leave sometime in either August or September. So one of the first ones to leave. Of course, when we're feeding the Orioles, three big things that they will feed on: sugar water, orange has, and grape jelly. Any of those type of foods are very easy to come across, very easy to present. There's a lot of different feeders now in the industry that allow you to feed these types of foods. You go back 20, 30 years ago, there was very few different types of Oriole feeders available, but now the very, very common type of feeding that goes on. Of course, when we start talking about springtime, we're talking about nesting. And the number one bird house that's sold within our industry is, of course, the wren houses. Wren houses come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. So you will see just about anything accessible that a bird can get into, a wren will use. Locations, they'll use them just about any location possible. Something that's post-mounted or something that's hanging and swinging is perfectly fine. You can mount these anywhere from 4 feet to 12 feet up off the ground, and you're going to get wrens in them. Our next most popular one, of course, are bluebirds. Bluebird houses are very specific. With our eastern bluebirds that we have in the upper Midwest, we're looking for a birdhouse that has a 1.5-inch hole. Some of the other features you want to make sure you take notice of on your birdhouses. Make sure it's something that's very easy to clean and monitor. So you want to be able to have a side entrance that you can open that house. Make sure it's very easy to get into. Also, you want to make sure you do monitoring on the nest so that you don't have any types of predation going on or any type of other issues within the nest while the eggs are in there. You want a house that's very easy to mount. Of course, mounting is very, very key as far as bluebird houses go. You typically want to mount these on a freestanding pole, something that you could put some type of a predator guard on the pole itself, so you won't have any issues with that. You want to make sure that we have a lot of ventilation and drainage holes in the bottom of the house to keep the moisture off the nest. Something else that we also recommend highly are predator guards. It's some sort of an extension on the entrance hole. That way it makes it harder for the raccoons and other predators to reach into the bottom of the nest. So you want to increase that distance on the entrance hole. Another feature that we like to recommend are raised floors. And this could simply be a piece of wire screen that the nest is going to be completely off the floor. Helps keep the nest dry. It also helps with insect predation. So we start talking about other houses that have become real popular, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. One that's become real popular are owl houses. Something you don't really think about, but it's something that you can use whether you live in a rural setting or an urban setting. Screech owl houses very readily are used by screech owls. Another nice feature about screech owl houses is that kestrels will use them very readily. Another one is a barred owl. They will use the nest boxes, and also barn owls. So typically you're going to be on these different species of birds, you're going to be mounting them on a tree, and you're going to be anywhere from about 10 to 15 feet up on these. Barn owl houses, of course, are going to be different because you're typically mounting them on a structure such as a barn or a building. But when you've got the owls using them, they will typically come back year after year. They're very, very loyal to their territory and to their nesting boxes. So once we get success on an owl house, this is what you will typically see on the outside. Here's a barred owl sitting on top, one of the fledglings. So what other type of species do we see that are real common and real popular during the springtime? Wood ducks. Really popular, especially in the upper Midwest and along the Mississippi River Valley. Probably one of the conservation's most biggest success stories over the last 100 years is the rebound of the wood duck numbers from very critical stages to now where we see it's just a very common duck that we see throughout North America. Once again, you want to make sure it's a wood duck. The wood duck box needs to be something that's very easy to clean and monitor. So you want an entrance door on the side. Fresh shavings should go into the wood duck box every single year. That just keeps things tidy. We don't have any transmission of disease, fungus or mold or anything from one year to the next. So typically February is the month that you want to get out and also start cleaning those wood duck boxes out and putting in fresh shavings. Mounting the wood duck box, poles are best. Poles that are in water typically work better for keeping predation out of them. Wood duck boxes will also work on the side of a tree or a post. Want to make sure that the box has an interior ladder. We want those ducklings to be able to climb out very easily out of those. And once again, like any other birdhouse, you want to make sure it has great ventilation and drainage. So when we start talking about birdhouses, we start getting into other species also. It's become a very popular trend of very species specific houses. So you find things for like chickadees and titmice and nuthatches. Those three will almost always use the same house. A little bit of variance on the entrance hole size. Chickadees are unique too because they will also use a lot of the wren houses that are available on the market. There are several different types of woodpecker models out there also. So you can have flicker boxes, which is a large box with a larger hole. You'll have some larger boxes with smaller holes that it's going to take care of the downies and the hairy woodpeckers. Tree swallows, typically that's just a simple bluebird house. And when you're putting out bluebird houses, we also recommend that two bluebird houses near each other within about 15 to 20 feet. And you will see occupancy of one house by the bluebird, the other house being occupied by the tree swallow. And another one are more social birds, colony nesters, are purple martins. If you live near water, within say a couple miles of water, which is very easy to do in the upper Midwest, you can attract purple martins very easily. So another trend that we see is other houses. What type of other species of animals can we attract with houses on our property? So one that's become real popular in the last couple of years is we've designed and marketed a tree frog house. This particular picture here is a tree frog house that's outside my office here. We got these guys in here every single year. They show up in the late spring and we have them all summer long. Other houses are toad houses, insect houses, mason bee boxes, and of course, bat houses. Very, very common what people are putting out nowadays. So those are the type of trends that we see within our industry going into the spring season. These are the type of trends that people tend to gravitate to and try to attract these type of species. So I hope everybody enjoys their spring. Happy birding. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thanks so much, Larry. I actually have some questions, but before I ask those, I just wanted to let everyone know that is watching this, that if you have questions, put them in the chat. You just type them right into the chat and I will read them off to Larry. So we've got wood duck boxes up at our cabin, but I have not changed the shavings, and you were saying that they should be changed in February. Is it too late to do that now, or?
No, not really. You're starting to see the wood ducks are just starting to get up here right now. So if you can get to them now, I would definitely within the next week or so get to those.
Okay.
You've had hood mergansers are another species that will use those boxes a lot. They've been here for several weeks yet, but they're still just doing courtship right now. So you don't really see any nesting box uses right now.
Great. So it's still safe to do that now. Is there anything else that I should do to those boxes to prepare them other than change the shavings?
Fresh shavings, one of the big things with wood duck boxes, it just makes sure the overall structure is sound. They're a larger box. You tend to see some warping, some cracking and stuff on the wood a lot of times. So just make sure the overall structure is good. Check your predator guards. If you have predator guards on those, make sure they're sound and ready to go. And other than that, it's just simply cleaning it out and putting those fresh shavings. That's the best thing to do.
Perfect. We've got a question from Julianne Gran. Hi, Julianne. How are you?
Hi.
And the question is grape jelly that has high fructose sugar in it safe for Orioles?
Yes. Yeah, any type of commercial grape jelly that you find works. We recommend grape jelly. You'll find some other flavors of jelly that you could possibly use, but the grape is the one that's kind of the industry standard, and all the research that's been done, it shows to be safe.
Perfect. Mark Listag has a question, And that is, should a person put sawdust in the base of a chickadee house?
Not necessary. No, not on chickadees. That's one of the species that you really don't have to do anything with. We recommend that once we get into the winter months and the late fall time, go ahead and take those houses, clean them out completely, remove the nest that's in there. That's going to prevent any transmission of any insects from one year to the next or any type of disease that might be in there. You can leave the house up over the winter. Some species and birds will get in there and roost during the evenings during the winter months. But make sure that they're just completely clean and they'll take care of building the nest.
Perfect. Missy Bowen has a question, which is, what about nesting boxes on trees and predators? What about the predators?
It's a problem. There's no question. So we recommend that most types of birdhouses should go on poles that you can put predator guards on. And you can make predator guards out of stovepipe. You can, or flashing also is another simple way of making that. If you have them on trees, you're going to have predation issues. So if you have a particular house that you're putting up there, predator guards are very helpful because they will increase the depth for the reach of, say, a raccoon trying to get into that box. But also it's going to be something that it's a natural thing to have them on a tree because you typically, our cavity nesters are nesting in trees. But if you can put them on a pole, it's best.
Is the primary predator that you have to be careful about, are those the raccoons?
Raccoons are the big ones, no question about it, yes.
Okay, what else
Snakes,
have you?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you have boxes mounted on trees, what other predators should you be watching out for besides raccoons?
Raccoons, snakes are another big predator. You'll see them get into the nest, clean out the whole thing. Possums are another one. House cats, unfortunately, that's another huge one. But our biggest problem on tree mounting is definitely the raccoons.
Okay. Do you guys do or put together nest boxes for flying squirrels? That's a question from Alex Sunball, and it's a great one because I would love to get one of those if they're out there.
I do not. That's
There's
something.
an idea for you.
It is, exactly. Yeah, it is actually on the list. We actually manufacture possum houses, squirrel houses. There's a lot of different houses we have. I do not have a flying squirrel house, though.
Okay.
Thanks for the idea.
Is that because they don't really use houses, or just haven't looked into that yet?
No, I haven't really looked into that yet. They are a cavity nester, so they would use a box. I'm almost positive they would.
Okay.
The type of design, where the entrance would be on that, I'd have to do some more research on something like that.
So we should
Years
look for that
ago,
next spring.
yes, yeah, exactly. Like years ago, there was a huge research project back, the University of Illinois did that. We made hundreds and hundreds of houses for deer mice. So there's a very specific type of a box for them. So any type of species like that's a very specific species. There's a lot of stuff that needs to go into it to make sure that you're accommodating it to maximize the attraction power of that particular box.
Perfect. Well, let us know when you come out with that because Alex and I will be first in line.
No
Another question, as you were talking, another question occurred to me, and that is, you were talking about nest boxes for titmice. And I have waited patiently in Mendota Heights, where we used to live, and in St. Paul now, for a single titmouse at my feeders, and it's never happened. Are you seeing more titmice in this area now, or what is your experience with that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Jen would be a better resource for that than I would. But I do not see them very often around here at all.
Okay.
When I lived in Illinois, that was a very common bird there. And but definitely the chickadees are all over the place, of course, but
Yeah.
titmice I just don't see as much.
Okay, well, hopefully we will.
Yes.
Here's another question, another excellent question. Where would you mount a tree frog house?
Tree frog houses are very versatile. I have one on a deck that's about 5 feet up off the ground. And anywhere, one of the nice things is anywhere you have an outdoor light source, that's where the tree frogs are attracted to. So anywhere on a deck, a porch, a patio, any of those places will work fine. You can put them out in the woods also on the side of a tree. The particular tree frog houses, you can actually just stand them up on the ground. not as stable. They can get knocked over that way. So we do recommend mounting them at least against something. So they can go ground level up to about 6 to 8 feet high. But typically you don't want to have them in a spot where you can enjoy and watch them, because when it starts to get towards evening, you will see that tree frog. He will come out of that house and he will sit there before he takes his little venture for the evening to go find something to eat.
Awesome.
Yep.
There's another question from Alex, but I wanted to follow up first. There's a follow-up question on the tree frog house. And that is, where the heck do you buy them? I haven't seen them.
If you get online, just Google tree frog house or tree frog tower, you'll find those online.
And a follow-up question to that is, where can we find your specific products?
Like our products, right now, we currently do not sell retail. We only sell wholesale. So any backyard birding store, hardware stores, a lot of those different types of places carry our products. We have a lot of different stores throughout Minnesota and Wisconsin that carry them. Online, you will find some stores that sell online, of course.
Okay, perfect. A follow-up from Julianne, and that is, she says that they have often found flying squirrels in their wood duck boxes.
Yes.
Winter in them and sometimes nest in them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That is very good to know. I'm going to have to, when I change the shavings, I'm going to check for flying squirrels.
Yes.
Back to another question from Alex. Alex says, my grandparents had red-headed woodpeckers nesting in their bluebird houses. Whoa. Would there be a better house to help them nest? And what are best practices that you would recommend in that regard?
Okay, as far as red-headed woodpeckers, of course, their numbers are plummeted over the last decade or so. So having them, or even seeing them anymore, is kind of a treat. As far as the houses go, if you do a search, you will find woodpecker houses. They're called 3 woodpecker houses. So they cover red-headed, hairy, and downy. And the particular thing about the woodpecker houses, you want to mount them up pretty high up in a tree. That's the best location for them. So anywhere from 15 to 20 feet high is great. And another thing is you want to just completely load the whole thing up with shavings. So they will get in there and excavate. So if you think naturally how they make a nesting spot is they will get into the side of a tree and they'll excavate that out and pull all those shavings out to make their nest for the season. So on that nesting box, fill that completely with pine shavings, and they will excavate that as deep as they need to. I keep saying wood duck. Woodpecker houses are very deep, so you will need quite a bit of shavings to put in there. Most woodpecker houses that are sold with the shavings in them. But also, once again, you want to replace those before spring gets in the nesting season. So replace.
Where do you get the shavings?
Shavings, any type of farm supply store. They sell the big bales of shavings for horse stalls. So use the pine and use pine shavings. Don't use anything else really. Pine shavings seem to have less dust and less problems with them as far as irritants go. So that's the safest one to use.
Excellent. You know, with respect to where you would place a woodpecker box, obviously up very high, but are there different requirements, for example, for red-headed woodpeckers versus hairy or downy?
No, not really. Nope,
Okay.
they're all about the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So like, for example, with the redheaded, I know that they are acorn lovers. Would you want to find an oak tree, or does that not really make a difference?
Somewhere close. So for food source is always great for any type of house that you put up. So yeah, that would be great.
Okay. A question to follow up on the wood shavings. Does it make a difference what type of wood shavings you use for your wood duck houses?
No, not really. Once again, I like the pine shavings. There just seems to be a less irritants and less dust with those. So, and another nice thing is about those is they're inexpensive and they're very readily accessible. So you can find them like at Fleet Farm or any type of ag store will have those.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for Larry? Larry, thank you so much. I can hardly wait to get out there and get a tree frog house and of course a flying squirrel house, but now I know maybe they'll show up in my wood duck houses. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you very much. Happy spring, everybody.
Thanks.
Larry, how can folks reach out to you if they have questions for you specifically?
Specifically, the best way to reach me is email.
Okay, and can you state the email for us quick?
Sure can. It is wildbirdstore@hotmail.com.
And it looks like we had one more question come in, Larry, and this
Yeah.
has been a really fun, sorry we got you started so early, but there seems to be a ton of questions as people get their yards ready for their favorite wildlife. Mark Listig asked, do you recommend a particular direction for the entrance of a house? And I know for bluebirds or like even bat houses, there's things that are Minnesota specific versus if you lived in Missouri, right? Painting the bat houses and which way they face and that whole
Right.
thing.
Right. Typically, bat houses are a whole different thing than regular bird houses. So typically the answer for that is I've never seen a bird with a compass stand on top of the box and make sure it's pointing the right direction. So you won't really see one that's going to work better or from one direction or not. If one of the things we do like to tell people though is where's most of your inclement weather coming from? So that's where you do not want the entrance hole facing if you can help it. It's not a deal breaker by any means. But if you can keep that inclement weather, such as blowing rain, which we typically hear, we'll get it out of the west or the southwest during the springtime. If you can face away from that direction is usually good. Bat houses are completely different because you want to make sure that they get sunlight as soon as possible during the day. Bats love the heat. So when it gets to be 100 degrees inside or plus inside that box, that's what's going to make the bats happy. So you want that to warm up as fast as possible. So a couple things, you want to make sure it's grabbing that morning sunlight on the bat house. And also you want to make sure there's some sort of a dark reflective color of the bat house. So if you buy a bat house that's just raw wood, we recommend that you stain it or paint the exterior. Don't put any paint on the interior. A dark color, dark brown or black works best.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Larry. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you.